I turned 73 on a Tuesday morning, March 26th, at 6:12 a.m. when my old Mr. Coffee sputtered like it had been woken from a long, resentful nap. The house was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your wrist when you pick up a metal spoon. Still, I set the table for two out of habit. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 napkins folded the way Linda used to fold them, into awkward little triangles with no symmetry whatsoever. I haven't had breakfast with anyone in years, but old habits die slower than old men. Outside, the neighbor's Honda warmed up at exactly 7:42, the same way it had every weekday since 2019. The mail truck wheezed down our street at 11:18. Life has its own calendar, and mine hasn't changed much since my wife died. What changes at my age is people, their priorities, their voices, the space they leave between phone calls. Emily, my daughter, used to call every Sunday, then twice a month, then only when she needed help with rent, then when she needed help moving, then when she got engaged to the man I privately refer to as Tyler the Taker. He has the handshake of a man who thinks he's auditioning for a job he already assumes he'll get. But Emily loves him, or loves the idea of him. I've stopped pretending I know which. By 9 a.m., my coffee was poured, my small breakfast eaten, and I'd ironed the pale blue shirt I planned to wear to Luigi's that night. The reservation was for 6:30, eggplant parmigiana, tiramisu, a friendly lie from a waiter pretending to recognize you. My birthday isn't a holiday. It's not even an event, but it was something. At 9:03, my phone buzzed. Emily? I answered on the first ring. I hate myself for that. Happy birthday, Dad, she chirped. Background noise, a door closing, keys, someone saying something about a florist. She was already in motion. Well, thank you, I said. I'll see you and Tyler tonight. That pause, barely a breath, could have cracked a window. Yeah, about that, she said. I sat down. Slowly. What about it? Dad, please don't be upset. Okay? It's just today is insane. The wedding planner changed our tasting time. The florist had a last-minute cancellation, so she can squeeze me in. The photographer wants to meet earlier. That Tyler's mom is landing sooner. It's just, she made it sound like she was stomping on her own patience. It's a lot. I stared at the 2 forks on the counter. They looked pathetic. So you're canceling my birthday dinner, I said, though I already knew. Not canceling. Rescheduling, she said quickly, slipping into that tone people use with customer service reps, whose names they didn't catch. We'll celebrate later, Dad. Maybe this weekend. I ironed my shirt, I said. Oh my God, Dad, don't make it a guilt trip. Please. The wedding is in... Hold on, Tyler, how many days? 60-something? Dad, it's chaos right now. You've had 32 birthdays with me, I said softly. Only one wedding. And that's exactly why we need to get it perfect, she snapped and caught herself. I didn't mean it like that. Time's tight. Apparently tighter than family obligations, I muttered. What? Nothing. She sighed dramatically. Look, we'll do something nice. I'll make reservations myself. My treat. That would be generous, I said, considering it would still be my credit card paying. She laughed like I'd told a joke. I hadn't. Dad, you know the wedding account is for all of us. It's part of the same bucket. No, I wanted to say, it's part of my bucket. A bucket I spent 42 years filling one paycheck at a time. But I swallowed it. We'll celebrate later, Dad, she repeated. I promise. Sure, I said. Later. I've got to run. Love you. Love you too, I answered, but she was already gone. I heard the beep of her phone disconnect before I finished the 2. The kitchen was so still afterward that even the refrigerator sounded judgmental. I stood at the counter a long time, looking at the 2 settings, at the empty chair where Linda used to sit and remind me not to grimace while drinking hot coffee, at the quiet window where the sun fell across the table like a spotlight on a play no one was watching anymore. At 6:30, I microwaved a frozen chicken pot pie. At 7, I poured a small glass of the cheap red wine Emily bought me last Christmas. At 7:30, I washed the single dish I'd used and put it back in the cabinet with a clink that felt like punctuation. Happy birthday, old man. I went to bed early, but my mind didn't follow. I stared at the ceiling fan, watching it chase the dark like a slow, useless compass. Emily had said we'd celebrate later. But later has a way of arriving whether you're ready or not. And as it turned out, later would not be at Luigi's. Later would be in court, though at the time, I had no inkling that the first domino had just been tipped. If I did, maybe I would have read the bank statements before they turned into a pile thick enough to smother conscience. Maybe I would have asked more questions instead of trusting the thin, flimsy thread of fatherly hope. But I'm 73. Hope is sometimes the only thing you have left to overspend. And she had just withdrawn far more of it than she realized. Weddings, I've learned, don't begin with romance. They begin with spreadsheet sales pitches and human beings who use the phrase, just sign here, the way magicians use sleight of hand. In early February, 6 weeks before my canceled birthday dinner, Emily came over with what I can only describe as the administrative version of a hurricane. Papers, binders, tabs, sticky notes, a gel pen she used like a conductor's baton, and of course, Tyler. Tyler has that specific kind of confidence that comes from being told good job too many times for accomplishing too little. He walked into my house like a man entering a dealership to pick up a luxury car that someone else had co-signed for. "Mr. Hart," he said, patting my shoulder with the familiarity of a distant relative who thinks he's closer than he is. "We've got exciting things to discuss." I didn't ask for excitement. I asked for coffee. I made it while they took over my living room like locusts. Emily dropped a stack of glossy photos on my table. Venues, dresses, flowers, a donut wall for reasons I still don't understand. "Dad," she said, eyes sparkling with a kind of frantic joy. "We found the place." "The place?" Tyler echoed, sitting down and opening a binder with the self-importance of a man unveiling a classified document. I looked at the photo. Peach-colored stone, rolling hills, a garden decorated with string lights that probably cost more per bulb than I used to make in a day. "Stonebridge Manor," Emily said proudly. "Saturday evening slot, May 31st. I nodded slowly. "Looks fancy." "It's elegant," she corrected. "Elegant usually means expensive," I said. Tyler grinned. "That's where you come in." My stomach tightened. When your children are grown, you'd think the days of paying for their mistakes or their hobbies or their whims would end. But adulthood, I've discovered, simply changes the vocabulary of the request, not the request itself. Emily clasped her hands dramatically. "Dad, we want this wedding to be perfect. Mom would have wanted it too." The ghost of Linda, summoned again like a spiritual credit card. "How much is a deposit?" I asked. "Only $12,500, Tyler said, as if he were revealing the price of a used lawnmower and not a small car. I blinked. "And the rest?" Emily inhaled deeply. "With catering, photography, open bar, decor, dress fitting, seating rentals, and the bridal suite upgrade package, about $65,000 to $70,000 total." She said it like someone reciting a grocery list. Tyler nodded, as if the math pleased him. $65,000? I repeated. "Dad, don't say it like that," Emily said. "It sounds big when you say it all together." "It is big," I said. "It's enormous." "Well, not if you break it into pieces," she countered. "Like monthly payments." I rubbed my forehead. "Monthly payments for a wedding." "It's an investment," Tyler added. "In what?" I asked. "In our future." I nearly laughed. If weddings were investments, half the country would retire early. Emily leaned forward, using the same face she used when she was 12 and wanted me to extend her curfew. "Dad, we're not asking you to pay for everything, just a foundation. My foundation is my retirement. But you said you wanted to give me the wedding of my dreams." I said I wanted to help. I corrected. Emily deflated for a moment, then perked up. "It's just the deposits. That's all we need now. And for that, we need you to sign a few forms." Here it came. I braced myself. She handed me 2 sheets of paper printed with dense paragraphs and cheerful formatting that didn't fool me for a second. "It says I can make payments on your behalf," she explained, "so vendors don't have to bother you." I read the document carefully, very carefully, but legal language is slippery. Words like limited access and delegated authority, and vendor communication rights sprinkled throughout like harmless confetti. Except it wasn't confetti. It was camouflage. "Emily," I said, "this gives you permission to transfer funds from the joint wedding account." "Well, yes. And to make purchases." "Of course." "And Tyler?" I asked, pointing at the second signature line. She waved a hand. "He needs access too. He's handling the rehearsal dinner and the bar package." Tyler smiled with all the sincerity of a tipped waiter. "And what's the budget limit?" I asked. Emily blinked. "Limit? Yes. The ceiling. The maximum spend." "Oh my God, Dad," she said, exasperated. "This isn't a utility bill. You don't set a cap on a wedding. You do if you're paying for it." "We'll stay reasonable," she promised. I looked at Tyler. He did not promise anything. "Just sign," she said, sliding the paper toward me. "Please." I should have said no. I should have stood up for myself. I should have remembered that people asking you to hurry are usually asking you to ignore something important. Instead, I remembered Emily at 5 years old, insisting I watch her spin in a dress until she fell over dizzy. I remembered her at 19 calling me from college because her tire had exploded. I remembered Linda holding her hand during kindergarten orientation and whispering, "She'll always run ahead and we'll always follow." So I followed. I signed. Emily squealed and hugged me. Tyler shook my hand like a man sealing a business deal. "You won't regret this," he said. I already did. They left my house laughing, planning, buzzing with excitement about floral arches and signature cocktails. And I sat alone in the sudden quiet, staring at the forms I had just legalized with my own foolish optimism. On the top corner, in small letters, the bank's logo smiled back at me. I should have recognized the irony. Banks smile hardest when someone is about to lose something important, and I had just handed over the keys to everything I'd saved. The first bank statement arrived on April 9th, folded neatly inside a white envelope that pretended to be harmless. Most disasters do. It sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days, pushed aside by grocery lists and a coupon booklet for hearing aids. At 73, you learn that most of the mail you receive either wants your money or reminds you that you're aging. Sometimes both. On April 11th, I finally slit the envelope open with my butter knife. Old habits. I no longer keep sharp things within reach unless absolutely necessary. Life becomes safer that way. The paper slid out with the heavy whisper of something that carried weight. Financial, emotional, or both. Wells Fargo account activity. March 1st to April 1st. My eyes skimmed the first few lines. Routine charges. Automated transfers. Then, March 12th, Sephora. $842.19. 03/14 Nordstrom. $1,230. March 17th, Delta Airlines. $1,187.76. 03/17. The Ritz-Carlton, Laguna Niguel. $2,884. 03/20. Lululemon. $376.50. March 21st, LYFT 8 charges. $293.44 total. March 23rd, Bloomingdale's. $614.90. March 24th, Anthropology. $298. I blinked. I rubbed my glasses. I rotated the paper as though a different angle would provide a different truth. But no matter which way the numbers faced me, they were the same. Not wedding venues, not florists, not photographers, not anything remotely shaped like matrimonial necessity. This wasn't a wedding budget. It was a shopping spree disguised as one. I turned the page. Total spent this cycle, $9,764.79. Total spent since account opening, $52,331.05. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, too quiet. Emily had burned through over $50,000 in 6 weeks. I set the paper down and stared at the refrigerator. Its magnets, its faded photo of Emily at age 8 wearing a crooked birthday crown. She had insisted on a chocolate frosted cake that year and gotten some on her shirt. Linda had laughed. Emily had cried. I had taken a photo anyway because it felt like life, messy and sweet and real. Now the girl in that picture was using my retirement funds to buy makeup, leggings, and God knows what else. For 10 minutes I sat there, unable to move. At my age, shock doesn't arrive like lightning. It arrives like snowfall, slow and steady, blanketing everything until you can't see the ground beneath you. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed Emily. She answered on speaker. Car noise, rustling bags. Someone saying, "Did you already send the deposit for the DJ?" "Dad, can I call you back? We're in the middle of something." "No," I said, my voice sounding oddly calm. "You cannot." Emily sighed. Okay, what's wrong? I got the bank statement. A pause. Not a guilty one, an annoyed one. Like I'd interrupted something trivial. And, she said, and I'd like to know why there's nearly $3,000 charged to the Ritz-Carlton. Oh my God, Dad, she groaned. That was a bridal retreat. With whom? With myself. And Delta Airlines? Location scouting for the Bachelorette, she snapped. Laguna Niguel is classy. And Nordstrom for $1,200? That was for engagement photos. And Sephora? She paused for the briefest flicker of embarrassment before burying it under indignation. Makeup for the wedding. Do you want me to look horrible in pictures? I gripped the edge of the counter. Emily, you spent over $50,000. You're exaggerating. Wells Fargo does not exaggerate. Well, they don't understand wedding culture. This is not wedding culture, I said quietly. This is theft. Her inhale was sharp and offended. Theft? Really? Are you calling me a thief now? I'm reading numbers, I said. Numbers don't lie. Dad, you're being controlling. And you're being reckless. You know what? Tyler said this would happen. He said you'd micromanage everything because you can't handle not being in control. I laughed. One short, humorless burst. Tyler? The man who hasn't paid for a single thing? The man who suggested the premium bar package before asking if anyone wanted a drink. Stop it, she snapped. Emily, I said, forcing my voice steady. Have you booked the venue yet? We're about to. Have you paid the photographer? We're negotiating. Have you hired the caterer? We're choosing tastings. So you've spent over $50,000, I said slowly. And not a single wedding service has been secured. That's not fair. It's accurate. She huffed loudly. Dad, you're stressing me out. I don't need this negativity. You need accountability. Wow, she said. Just wow. And then she hung up. No goodbye. No love you. Just a tone and silence. I lowered the phone, set it beside the coffee maker, and looked again at the statement. $50,000 gone. Gone where? Into shopping bags, luxury hotels, overpriced skincare, and a fantasy of a wedding that existed only on Instagram. Some part of me broke that afternoon, not with a snap, but with a quiet collapse, like an old bookshelf finally giving in to the weight it had been carrying for too long. When Linda died, I had promised myself I would always protect Emily. I never imagined I'd one day have to protect myself from her. I folded the bank statement, placed it carefully back in the envelope, and set it atop the pile of unopened ones. My hands were steady now, steadier than they had been in years. Something had shifted inside me. A line had been crossed. A fuse had been lit. And I was just beginning to understand that my daughter believed two things with absolute certainty. That I would always forgive her, and that she would never face consequences. She was wrong on both counts. Emily didn't come over after our phone argument. She didn't call. She didn't text. That alone told me more than any bank statement could. Guilt stays quiet, but entitlement shouts by refusing to speak. 3 days passed. On the 4th, just as I finished washing yesterday's coffee mug, a habit I never rush, my doorbell rang. A sharp, impatient sound, the kind of ring that already assumes the right to enter. I dried my hands on a dish towel and opened the door. Emily stood there with her arms crossed, chin lifted, cheeks flushed. Tyler hovered behind her, wearing an expression I can only describe as managerial disappointment. He looked like a man about to deliver a performance review to an underperforming employee. Dad, Emily said without hello, we need to talk. Come in, I said, or stay out and shout from the porch. Either works. She brushed past me. Tyler followed with the confidence of someone who believed the house might already belong to him. They sat on the couch, not together. Emily perched on the edge like a nervous bird. Tyler leaned back like a man settling into a seat he hadn't paid for. I stayed standing. Emily took a deep breath, preparing her opening statement. Dad, she said, I saw the freeze you put on the account. Good, I replied. Then we're on the same page. She blinked rapidly. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you talk to me first? I did, I said. You hung up on me. That's not fair. What's not fair, I interrupted, is that I opened that account for the wedding, not for you to use it like a personal ATM. Emily exhaled loudly, the way she did when she was 15, and I wouldn't let her borrow the car. Dad, this is normal, she insisted. Most brides spend money preparing for the wedding. Makeup, clothes, retreats. Retreats, I repeated. Plural. That's not the point. It is the point, I said. Tyler leaned forward, clasping his hands together like a consultant in a corporate training video. Mr. Hart, he began, I think this is just a misunderstanding. Emily is under immense stress. This is a major life event. She's carrying a lot emotionally. So naturally, she made some purchases to manage that. Nearly $60,000, I said, of stress. That's an exaggeration, Emily began. I lifted the statement. Direct from Wells Fargo. She swallowed hard. Dad, she said, softening her tone, don't you trust me? There it was, the sentence I had been bracing for. The emotional manipulation disguised as vulnerability. I trusted you, I said slowly. Past tense. Before I learned you used thousands of dollars for a hotel getaway, clothing hauls, and flights to California. Emily's face tightened, defensive lines etching near her mouth. I'm your daughter, she said. I deserve to feel beautiful and supported on my wedding day. There are moments in life when time seems to pause, not out of drama, but out of disbelief. I felt that pause now. A stillness, so complete it muffled the sound of my own breathing. Emily, I said quietly, you don't deserve $60,000 of beauty treatments before you've even booked caterer. She flinched. That's cruel. That's arithmetic. She looked helplessly at Tyler. He straightened, adopting an authoritative tone he had not earned. Mr. Hart, let's be rational, he said. The wedding will benefit all of us. It's a family event. If you create financial stress now, it hurts everyone. Hurts everyone? I repeated. Funny, I didn't see you paying for anything. Excuse me, he snapped. I contribute in other ways. What ways? I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it. Emily rushed to fill the silence. Dad, weddings are expensive, she said desperately. That's just how it is. And yet, I said, passing her the statement, not a single deposit has been paid to the venue, the photographer, or the caterer. Nothing that secures the wedding has been done. She stared at the papers, but didn't take them. Tyler reached for them instead, scanning the list with growing irritation. This is a little high, he muttered. A little? I asked. Emily's voice rose. Dad, stop embarrassing us. No, I said. You've embarrassed yourselves. The room froze. Emily trembled. You're ruining everything, she whispered. No, I said, calm as a stone. I'm acknowledging everything. Hard truth ages better than denial. Emily stood up abruptly. If you don't unfreeze the account, the wedding is off schedule. If I don't unfreeze the account, I corrected. The wedding is finally under control. You can't do this to me, she said. I already did, I replied. And if I have to do more, I will. Tyler scoffed. What are you going to do? Sue us? I didn't answer. Not then. But a seed was planted, and seeds grow roots faster than you think, especially when watered by betrayal. Emily stormed out, tears streaking her cheeks. Tyler followed, giving me a look that promised future conflict. The door slammed. The house settled into silence. And in that silence, something inside me hardened, not into anger, but into resolve. I realized then, they thought consequences were optional. They thought my love was a shield they could spend. They thought age made me weak, but age also makes you patient and very, very thorough. The house was quiet after Emily and Tyler left. Quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt diagnostic, like a doctor pressing a stethoscope to your chest and hearing something he doesn't comment on yet. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, even though it was already past 5. At my age, caffeine doesn't keep you awake. Indignation does. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, the kind Linda used for grocery lists, and I wrote one word at the top in slow, careful block letters. Totals. Funny how a single word can carry the weight of an entire life. I opened the folder of statements. Not just the newest one, all of them. A stack thick enough to require a rubber band. I hadn't read the earlier envelopes. I tossed them aside the way you toss aside medical test results when you already know you won't like what they say. Now I read every line. 03/03 Glossier. $217.80. 03/05, Zara, $189. 03/07, Airbnb Los Angeles, $612.34. 03/09, Uber Multiple, $154.20. March 10th, Wellness Retreat, Soul Bloom, $1,540. March 12th, Sephora, $842.19. 03/14, Nordstrom, $1,230. March 17th, Delta Airlines, $1,187.76. March 17th, Ritz-Carlton, $2,884. March 18th, Revolve, $455. March 19th, West Elm, $338. 03/20, Lululemon, $376.50. March 23rd, Bloomingdale's, $614.90. And on, like a parade of irresponsibility marching past my eyes. By the time I finished totaling, the number shocked me even though I thought I was prepared. $57,912.76. All gone. Not a cent toward the venue. Not a deposit for the caterer. Not a retainer for the photographer. Not even a down payment for the dress. Unless the dress was made of Sephora's entire inventory. I ran my thumb over the sum, tracing its cruel shape. A number that large makes a noise, like a door slamming shut on who you thought someone was. I picked up the phone and dialed Wells Fargo. The customer service representative, a middle-aged man named Craig, sounded apologetic before I even explained the problem. Maybe it was the quiver in my voice or the way older men speak when the world has just tilted under them. "Sir," he said after reviewing the account, "these purchases do not resemble typical wedding expenditures." "That's one way to put it," I replied. He lowered his voice. "Some of these are flagged as unusual activity. Are they reversible?" "Not without filing a fraud complaint. And since you authorize your daughter as a secondary user." "I was misled," I said. "Does that count?" "It might," he said gently, "if there's demonstrable intent." "Intent?" I whispered. "She spent nearly $60,000. That's intent." He hesitated. "Sir, have you spoken to a legal professional?" "Not yet." But something in me shifted when he said it. Not a snap, but a tightening. The way a bolt turns on a hinge you thought was rusted in place. "Thank you, Craig," I said. "You've been helpful." After we hung up, I called the county legal aid hotline. A soft-voiced woman listened patiently as I explained. When I finished, she said, "Mr. Hart, this is financial exploitation." "I didn't think that term applied to families," I said. "It often does," she replied. "And it is not uncommon for adult children to misuse accounts belonging to elderly parents." There it was again, the word people think you don't notice. She continued, "If you believe your daughter intended to use funds for personal gain under the guise of a wedding, you can file a formal complaint. It may result in restitution." Restitution, I repeated. Another word with weight. Another word Linda would have hated. "Would you like to proceed?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the photographs on the wall. Emily's graduation, Emily in a Halloween costume, Emily holding her first paycheck from the ice cream parlor at age 16. If someone else, someone unrelated, had stolen $60,000 from me, I would have filed a police report the same day. But when it's your child, guilt grows teeth, and those teeth bite slow. "Yes," I said finally, "I'd like to proceed." She directed me to the county fraud unit. I filled out the forms that evening. I printed copies, signed them. The pen didn't even tremble. Age either steadies your hand or deadens your nerves. I can't say which it was. When I slipped the documents into an envelope, sealing the flap with a firm press of my thumb, something settled inside me. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't anger. This was arithmetic meeting accountability. Emily had spent my retirement like it was confetti. She had canceled my birthday without remorse. She had expected forgiveness as a default setting. She had believed consequences were for other people. That night, as I sat in my quiet kitchen, I realized one simple truth. If my daughter wanted to behave like a stranger, the law would treat her like one, and I, the man who spent decades protecting her, would now be the one protecting himself. I went to bed early. Not because I was tired, but because morning would bring the next step. And for the first time since Linda died, I felt a kind of purpose rising in my chest. Not warm, not comforting, but steady. A purpose with sharp edges. A purpose spelled out in every line of that bank statement. I dropped the fraud packet into the blue mailbox outside the post office on April 19th at 9:47 a.m. The timestamp stuck with me. The moment the envelope slid through the metal slot, landing with a soft thud, I felt a shift, not dramatic, not cinematic, but like a knot finally loosening in the chest. For the first time in months, my actions weren't reactive. They were deliberate, considered, mine. When I returned home, there were 5 missed calls from Emily and 2 from Tyler. No voicemails. Manipulators prefer live performances. At 3:12 p.m., the doorbell rang. Again, the urgent jam of someone who has never waited for anything patiently. Emily barged in before I even invited her. Her face was a blotchy, mascara-smudged, the kind of look she used to get after losing a middle school argument about curfew. Tyler followed, his jaw tight, his eyes calculating. A man who believed outrage could be leveraged into authority. "What the hell is this?" Emily demanded, waving a printout, probably the bank alert about the frozen account plus the fraud notice. Good. It reached her fast. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said calmly. "A fraud inquiry. You reported me," she cried. "Your own daughter." "You stole from me," I corrected. "Your own father." "That's not fair," she shouted, pacing, hair flying like a furious halo. "I was planning my wedding. Things cost money. Women need." "Women," I interrupted, "do not need $1,500 soul bloom retreats to get married. That was for stress. And the Ritz-Carlton?" She flushed. "Also stress. And Delta Airlines?" "Dad." "Emily," I said, "I'm done paying for this. You can't do that." Her voice cracked. "The wedding is in 6 weeks. 6. We've told everyone. Deposits are due. Vendors are expecting payments." "I'm aware." "Then unfreeze the account." "No." She stopped pacing. Her entire body went still, dangerously still. Tyler stepped forward, puffing himself up like a rooster that mistook itself for an eagle. "Mr. Hart," he said, enunciating each word as though speaking to a foreign tourist, "you are overreacting. There's a process to weddings. These purchases were fraudulent, were necessary." "For what?" I asked. "For who?" "I see personal purchases, vacations, makeup, designer clothes, wellness retreats. None of that booked a venue. None of that hired a caterer. None of that got you any closer to an actual wedding." Emily's chin quivered. "Dad, why are you being so cruel?" Cruel. There it was again, her favorite weapon. Not reflection, not apology, accusation. I sat slowly in my armchair, hands folded, posture steady. "I'm not being cruel," I said. "I'm being responsible." Tyler scoffed, crossing his arms. "Wow. Classic boomer logic." "Classic logic," I corrected. "If you spend someone else's money without permission, there are consequences." Emily's voice went shrill. "I had permission. You signed the form." "And you misused it," I replied. "You lied to me. You said the funds were for the wedding. You said you needed access for deposits. You haven't made a single legitimate wedding payment." "That's not true." "Emily," I said softly. I checked. Her mouth snapped shut. "You're unbelievable," she whispered, half to herself. "Mom would never." "Your mother," I said, steady as stone, "would never have used someone's love as a credit card." That landed hard. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to hold my hand crossing the street. Then she hardened, turning into the woman who now saw me as a resource instead of a parent. Tyler stepped in again. "Listen, you're 73. You have limited income. Maybe you're confused. Maybe." "Careful," I said, my voice quiet but sharp. He froze. Even he knew not to finish that sentence. Emily wiped her eyes. "If you don't unfreeze the funds, the wedding falls apart. You'll ruin everything." "No," I said. "You ruined it the moment you decided the wedding was an excuse to bankroll a lifestyle." "So that's it?" she asked bitterly. "You're choosing money over family?" "I'm choosing boundaries over exploitation." Her breathing hitched. "You're going to regret this." I already regretted signing the forms, I said. This is the first decision regarding this wedding I don't regret. Tyler muttered under his breath, we'll fight this. You have no case. I have every receipt, I said. And then only then did fear flicker across his face. Emily grabbed her bag, tears streaking her cheeks again. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, I said. I'm stopping you from doing more to me. She left. Tyler followed, slamming the door harder than necessary, like a toddler denied candy. The house trembled for a moment. Then it settled into silence. I sat there, listening to my own slow breathing, the steady hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a dog barking down the street. I had not raised my voice. I had not shaken. I had not apologized. For once I had been steady, and steadiness at my age feels like power. When the clock hit 6:00 p.m., I poured myself a glass of water, not wine. Clear, cold, clean. I lifted it slightly, as if making a toast. To no longer being used, I said, and I drank. The county fraud unit moved quickly, faster than I expected, slower than Emily deserved. By early May, I had spoken with 2 investigators, handed over every bank statement, email, text message, and copy of the authorization form she pressured me to sign. They asked precise questions. They didn't use soft words. They didn't tiptoe. Financial exploitation of a senior citizen. Intentional misrepresentation. Unauthorized use of funds. Over $50,000 in non-wedding transactions. The kind of language that strips away family ties and leaves only facts. When the investigator said, Mr. Hart, this is a strong case, I felt something like grief and relief tangled together. Grief for the daughter I used to have. Relief from the daughter she became. On May 12th, the notice was issued. On May 14th, Emily was officially informed. On May 31st, the day she was supposed to walk down an aisle strewn with rose petals, she would instead walk into courtroom 4B. Life is ironic like that. It keeps better records than people do. 2 weeks before the court date, she left me a voicemail. I didn't pick up. She called from a blocked number. Her message was shaky, furious, rehearsed. Dad, I can't believe you're dragging me into court. You're humiliating me. You're ruining my life. Tyler says this is elder abuse in reverse. You can't weaponize your age like this. I will never forgive you. A strange line in there. Weaponize your age. As if being 73 were a strategy rather than a reality. As if I hadn't spent my life protecting her long before the first wrinkle ever appeared on my hands. Tyler left his own voicemail. This is ridiculous, sir. People will talk. You're ruining Emily's reputation. You're making things harder than they need to be. We can handle this privately. Withdraw the complaint. I didn't respond. I still had the hearing to prepare for. The prosecutors were confident, but I was the complaining witness. I had to speak. I had to recount everything, and I had to do it clearly. Funny how at 73, you sometimes forget where you set your glasses, but you never forget betrayal, not even the details. The morning of May 31st was warm and bright. Birds were chirping in the yard. My neighbor waved at me as I tied my shoes, my good pair, polished for the occasion. You going somewhere fancy, John? He asked. I smiled. Something like that. The courthouse was busier than I expected on a Friday. People lined the halls. Mothers with strollers, men in suits. A teenager crying into her hoodie. Life happening in fragments, all under the weight of fluorescent lights. Courtroom for B smelled faintly of old paper and cold air conditioning. I took my seat in the front row. Emily arrived 10 minutes later. She wore white, not a full gown. She wasn't that delusional, but a white fitted dress, as if clinging desperately to the ceremony that would never happen. Her hair was curled, but not freshly. Her makeup looked blotchy, as though tears had sat on top of foundation too long before being wiped away. Tyler walked beside her. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his expression tight, but not from guilt, from annoyance. Like the whole situation was a rude inconvenience. They did not look at me. Family members trickled in. An aunt, a cousin of Linda's, Tyler's mother with a face so pinched she looked permanently lemon-flavored. They whispered, glancing at me like I was the villain in a play they hadn't seen from the beginning. Then the clerk called the case. Hart versus Hart and Thompson. My name, her name, his name. 3 people tied together by blood, marriage promises, and now fraud codes. The judge entered. A woman in her 50s, stern but not unkind. She examined the complaint, the evidence, the statements, and the photos of online purchases that looked like a department store had exploded. Then she asked me to speak. I stood slowly, feeling every bit of my age, but none of its weakness. Your Honor, I began, I did not come here because I stopped loving my daughter. I came because she stopped respecting me. Emily's shoulders jerked, like the words had hit her skin. I agreed to help pay for her wedding, I continued. Not her vacations, not her shopping, not her retreats, not her lifestyle. I thought I was giving her a future. Instead, she spent mine. The courtroom was quiet. Even Tyler had stopped shifting in his seat. I'm 73 years old. I worked 42 tax seasons. I saved. I sacrificed. And my daughter knew that. She counted on that. She relied on my love to shield her from consequences. I glanced at Emily. Her eyes were wet, but her jaw remained set in defiance. No parent wants to bring their child to court, I said. But I can't pretend she didn't know what she was doing. I can't soften the facts just because she shares my last name. I lifted the bank statements, edges worn from reading. These numbers do not lie. They tell story. And it isn't a story about a wedding. I sat down. The judge looked at Emily. Ms. Hart, would you like to respond? Emily stood, trembling. Yes, Your Honor, she said, her voice cracking. I never meant to hurt my dad. I was stressed. I wanted a perfect wedding. I didn't realize. That's a lie, Tyler muttered under his breath. The judge raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. Tyler stiffened. I mean, she didn't realize the expenses would add up like that. The judge turned to him. Mr. Thompson, were you aware these funds were being used for personal purchases? He hesitated too long. Some, he said finally. Some totaling over $50,000, she clarified. He wilted. The judge leaned back. Her decision was swift. Restitution, mandatory repayment plan, financial counseling, restriction of financial authority, and finally, freezing the wedding account permanently. Emily's face collapsed. Tyler's went pale. As the gavel struck, the judge added, let this serve as a reminder that trust is not a blank check. The words hung in the air like a verdict all their own. When we exited the courtroom, Emily rushed past me without a word. Tyler grabbed her arm, muttering something urgent. Relatives avoided my eyes. I stepped outside. The sunlight was warm, the breeze gentle. People walked by with ice cream cones and shopping bags, oblivious to the emotional surgery that had just taken place in courtroom 4B. There should have been a wedding that day. There should have been vows and music and cake. Instead, there had been justice. And I realized something. The ceremony Emily canceled when she canceled my birthday dinner. I had simply rescheduled. Different venue, different lighting, different kind of vows, but a ceremony nonetheless. And in its own strange way, it fit the occasion perfectly. When the courthouse doors closed behind me, the sunlight hit my face with the same warmth Linda used to press into my palm when she wanted me to slow down and breathe. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath through most of the hearing, or through most of the past 3 months. Courtroom for be emptied behind me like the last guests leaving a wake. If the universe believed in symmetry, then the timing was poetic. May 31st, my daughter's wedding day. Instead of rose petals, we walked on gray courthouse tile. Instead of vows, there were statements of fact. Instead of a kiss, there was a ruling. But there was closure, not the warm kind, not the sentimental kind, the kind that feels like a bone finally setting correctly after months of healing crooked. I sat on a concrete ledge near the steps and watched people pass. Couples arguing over parking tickets. A man in a suit shouting into a phone. A teenager crying while her mother rubbed her back. Lives intersecting in tiny collisions. I didn't expect Emily to come speak to me. She didn't. She and Tyler hurried out the opposite door, surrounded by a few sympathetic relatives who looked at me as though I were a man who drowned his own child. One aunt whispered, heartless. Another murmur floated. He's old. He doesn't understand weddings today. Funny how when you stop being someone's wallet, you also stop being someone's elder, someone's father, someone's memory. I watched Emily walk to the parking lot. Her white dress, what a choice, flapped in the afternoon wind. Tyler kept gesturing sharply, clearly scolding her for crying too obviously in public. Even then, even in defeat, he treated her like something to manage. And she let him. I didn't call out. I didn't wave. Some injuries require silence. When they drove off, leaving twin streaks of indignation behind their tires, the world seemed to exhale with me. That evening I went to Luigi's. Not because I was hungry. Not because I wanted celebration. But because rituals matter, even broken ones. Luigi's was half full, mostly older couples, and a family with 2 small children throwing breadsticks at each other. The waiter, a young man with nervous hands, led me to a corner table. For one, he asked. For one, I confirmed. When he left, I ran my palm over the tablecloth. White linen, slightly frayed edges. Nothing perfect, but real. I ordered the eggplant parmigiana and a glass of the house red. The same meal I'd planned to share with Emily on my birthday. The same meal she canceled for a florist appointment. When the food arrived, steam rising like a small blessing, I found myself smiling, not with joy, not with triumph, but with a tired sort of peace. Halfway through dinner, someone cleared their throat beside my table. I looked up to see my neighbor, Mrs. Hernandez, the one whose dog barks at the mail truck every day. John, she said gently. I heard what happened today. Small towns spread news quickly. Court schedules spread faster. She put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I didn't answer. Sometimes other people's certainty is sturdier than your own. Come sit with us, she offered, nodding toward her sister at another table. I hesitated. I'd gotten so used to eating alone. The idea of company felt foreign. But then I remembered all the dinners I'd waited for Emily to join. All the conversations I'd paused, thinking she'd arrive any minute. All the nights I'd let my food go cold for someone who never showed. I'd like that, I said. So I joined them. We talked about tomatoes, noisy lawnmowers, the heat wave coming next week. Nothing dramatic. Nothing emotional. Just people sharing time. Something Emily had once done effortlessly, but no longer remembered how. When the check came, I tried to pay. Mrs. Hernandez shooed my card away. Today we celebrate you, she said. A simple gesture, but it landed deeper than any apology Emily could have given. When I got home, the house felt different. Not larger, not emptier. I took out the folder of wedding documents and set it on the kitchen table. All the glossy brochures, color-coded notes, budget sheets, printed email threads. Then I fed each page into the shredder. The machine worked steadily, turning lies into strips, turning guilt into trash, turning months of manipulation into something I could drop into a bin on Thursday morning. When it was done, I poured myself a small glass of brandy, something I saved for rare occasions. I stood at the window, watching the street light flicker on. Emily once said, "We'll celebrate later, Dad." At the time, I thought she meant a postponed dinner. But later came today, in court, in truth, in the reclaiming of my own dignity. I lifted the glass slightly, as if toasting someone invisible. To later, I whispered. And for the first time in a long time, later finally felt like a beginning.